car sort of fits the profile of a drug smuggler.
U.S. citizen?
I'm on my way to the airport right now because I just bought this 2009 Maserati Quattroporte S with the 4.7 liter V8. This car has probably the best sounding exhaust from the factory of any four-door sedan. Anyway, I'm flying from Boston to Phoenix and planning to drive this car all the way back to New Hampshire, about 2,700 miles. While this car looks pretty good for the most part, there are a couple red flags, but as for the good things, the auction does list this as runs and drives, and also it looks like it's in pretty good cosmetic condition, which indicates that it probably was taken care of. As for the red flags, the Carfax shows 5 owners, the last of which only drove the car 400 miles before trading it in. As the saying goes, not all cars at the auction are bad, but all bad cars go to the auction. So the worry here is that there could be some serious issue that could be expensive to fix. The other red flag is that the auction listing shows that the car had its engine codes reset 30 miles ago, and so I'm sort of expecting the check engine light to come on after driving it for a bit. Will this car make it home under its own power? Should you buy one of these? Let's cut to the auction yard in Phoenix and find out. Oh, just walking up on it now. There it is, all by itself. What makes this car so special is that it was designed before the Fiat Chrysler era, at a time when Ferrari had full control of the company and purposed Maserati as its luxury division. I picked up this gem for only $9,000, which is ridiculously cheap for an exotic Italian car. If you look in the comments, I can already tell you you're going to find people who have never owned one of these telling you about how unreliable and horrible it is. Well, I have good reason to suspect that they're wrong, which I'll talk about later. Well, here it is. I guess let's hop inside and see if it starts up. We got some beeping. Okay. Lovely. So if you look right there, the suspension warning light is on. That was not disclosed by the auction. But let's get this car out of the auction yard and then we can check it over and see what's going on. So far, it seems to be driving fine. Everything seems good. Howdy. Oops, sorry. Easy as pie. So we're just stopping the parking lot over here so I can throw some license plates on it, and we'll go through this thing first as well. Ooh, that exhaust sounds good. Alrighty, cool. Look at this beautiful Ferrari-derived V8. So the coolant over here, it looks blue and it looks like the level's okay. As for the engine oil, the oil looks okay. Might as well check the power steering fluid. That might be a little bit low. I mean, I can see fluid in there, so it'll probably be fine for the ride home. Brake fluid is back here. And I can see brake fluid in there, so that looks like it's probably okay. It needs a flush, but that's honestly par for the course. Look at this thing though, it's got a lot of options. It's got the 4-zone climate control. It has the tables here for the rear seats. It's kind of a weird position for the heated and cooled seat controls, but it has heated and air-conditioned seats. And does it have the drink cooler? It does. Okay, before we go anywhere, let's see what we have for codes on this thing. Maserati. We'll start with the engine. Let's see, so the ME7, I believe, is the 4.2 liter, and the ME9 is the 4.7 liter, which I have. And let's just check codes and see if there's anything there. No codes, good. Now for the suspension, okay, Skyhook suspensions. And trouble codes. Okay, right front solenoid valve, maximum threshold exceeded. Left front solenoid valve, maximum threshold exceeded. They're stored. Why don't I just erase these and we'll see if they come back. Yes. Okay, good, no codes. Okay, so I gotta go check out of my hotel room, and then I've arranged with a local auto shop for me to come in and have a bay to use to do an oil change, and then just kind of give this thing a little once over and make sure it's good to go across the country. Okay, I'm gonna start by doing an oil change on this, and then while that's draining, we'll go around and take a look at the rest of the vehicle. Oh, here we go. Well, the oil looks like oil, you know, yeah, looks good. No water or crap in it as far as I can see. While that oil's draining, let's take a look underneath. It looks really good under here as far as corrosion goes. There's absolutely none of it, as you'd expect from a car from the Southwest. Pretty good access to the front of the engine down here. A little bit of oil leaking from somewhere, although it looks like it's a pretty minor leak. Not too concerned about that. Looks like there's a heat shield protecting that ball joint. That's cool. I've never seen anything like that before. I mean, everything here looks pretty good. The bushings look good. This one has the desirable ZF automatic transmission. And then over here in the back, it's kind of more of the same. Like, everything looks pretty good in here. Look at this. The drain plug even has a magnet on it. Is that not awesome? The oil filter here is really easy to access. I absolutely love that. Don't forget to take your seal off. So the old filter does say Maserati on it. And the new filter I got came like this. You can see it says Ferrari under there. Interestingly, it says new Maserati filters. They send them with a little bit of oil in them, which is why it is oil soaked. Yep, same filter. Really important before I drive this thing across the country is to make sure that all the suspension, wheel bearings, all that stuff are tight. And this one does have a little bit of play in it, side to side. It's good top to bottom. We'll take a look underneath and see where this play is coming from. Also, while I'm here, Pininfarina styling on this bad boy. So if you look at this right here, that's the boot for the inner tie rod end. I'm moving the wheel now. Do you see how much play there is there? That tells me that either the play is in the inner tie rod end right here, or it's in the steering rack. I think it's more likely to be in the steering rack, which means, you know, I really don't think it's a big deal. If anything, there might be a little bit of looseness in the steering, but I haven't noticed anything. Over here on the other side, it feels totally fine. And then over here on the back, everything feels nice and tight. Okay, so this thing takes 9 liters of 5W40 oil. Other than that, it's not actually that picky when it comes to motor oil. I'm being eaten by the hood lid here. Apparently these hood struts are a little bit weak. Okay, let's start it up and we'll check the level. Okay, I'm trying to do this one-handed. Oil level looks like the oil level is excellent. Spot on.
With that service done, it was time to hit the road and start what I was hoping would be an epic road trip home. I'd also like to thank Joe's Auto for letting me use one of their bays. It certainly was nice working in a clean shop with a concrete floor.
So that service went really well, and I'm very happy with the mechanical condition of this vehicle. It certainly seems like I have a good chance of making it home, of course, barring any unforeseen circumstances or hidden issues that have yet to pop up. In any case, I'm on the highway now, and I have a 2-hour drive to my overnight stop in Tucson, and beyond Tucson is nothing but desert. And so I wanted to stop in Tucson tonight just in case anything pops up that I need to deal with. I'll be in a city, so I should have access to parts and fluids and tools, things like that. I should also mention that I'm taking the sort of less direct southern route. The fastest route home would be for me to go up to Interstate 40 and take that east, but the problem there is that there are no Maserati dealers until I get to like St. Louis or something like that. And if I need parts, that could be a problem. Whereas if I take this southern route, I'm taking Interstate 10 to Interstate 20, there's a Maserati dealer in El Paso, and then I think there are 3 Maserati dealers in Dallas. Then there are, I think, a couple of them at least in Tennessee. So the route I'm taking essentially gives me good parts access in case I need them. Good morning. So I made it to Tucson last night without any issues, and my goal for today is to make it to Midland, Texas, which is about a 9-hour drive.
Now, the interesting thing for today is that because I'm taking Interstate 10 eastbound and I'm so close to the border, or at least I will be, is that I'm going to have to go through the Border Patrol checkpoint in Texas. And I'm aware, let's say, of the possibility that this car sort of fits the profile of a drug smuggler. I mean, it's an older, blacked out Maserati. The windows are really darkly tinted, and I'm driving on temporary Arizona license plates eastbound away from the border. And so who knows what might happen. Now, usually what happens when you go through these checkpoints is you roll down your window and the Border Patrol agent asks you if you're a US citizen. You say yes, and then they're like, okay, have a nice day. But in my case, it would not surprise me if I get asked more questions than that. And unfortunately, it also wouldn't surprise me if they asked me to pull over for further inspection. I just hope this car wasn't actually previously owned by a drug smuggler or drug dealer, because who knows what could be in here and how much trouble I could get in. As I approached the Border Patrol checkpoint, there was a ton of truck traffic, as you can see to the right. For some reason, the truck in front of me took the car lane.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Okay, well, that was easy. Driving through the desert of West Texas was fairly nice, with wide open roads and an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. Good morning. It's obviously the next day. I made it to my destination last night without any major issues. The only thing really worth noting is that the suspension light that was on the dash went off yesterday, and then it came back on this morning, and now it's off again. And one thing that I've noticed is that the ride quality is a lot better, a lot smoother when the light is off. I think when the light comes on, the suspension goes into some sort of default error mode where the suspension's just not as soft. But at least I have something to fix on this car. The plan for today is to drive to Little Rock, which is about 9.5 hours or thereabouts, depending on traffic. It was upon driving through Dallas that I needed to stop for fuel. I decided to stop at one of the largest gas stations in the world. I guess everything really is bigger in Texas. Look at this, a Buc-ee's. I've always wanted to go to one of these. I figured while we're here, I might as well calculate fuel economy, and since Midland, Texas, I used 15.8 gallons of fuel, and I averaged 23 miles per gallon even, and that's really not too bad for a car like this. Now, obviously, the main reason why you buy this car is not for fuel economy, but with that said, it's nice to not have to constantly stop at gas stations to fill up. Driving through East Texas, the first thing you notice is the humidity and correspondingly the greener vegetation. Otherwise, there's not much more to report at this point on the journey. Good morning, it's day 4 of the trip and I'm just leaving Little Rock. You can see by the dramatic change in scenery that I am now fully inside of the humid eastern half of the country. Everything's green and there are big trees and such. The plan for today is to drive all the way to Columbus, Ohio. It's about an 11-hour drive, and I'm driving through a lot of cities today. I got Memphis, Nashville, Louisville, Cincinnati, and then into Columbus. We are expecting some severe weather today, so hopefully nothing too crazy. We did have tornado watches last night, although luckily nothing materialized. Okay, so I've been sitting in traffic now for about an hour and the transmission's giving me issues. The transmission light came on. I'm not sure what that red light actually is supposed to be, but it said check transmission, go to dealer, and now it's saying manual mode unavailable. So the transmission's also behaving weirdly too. Well, now that we're moving, it seems like the transmission is in limp mode and I'm stuck in a low gear, maybe second gear. So yeah, this is not gonna be fun. I gotta pull over and check the codes. Okay, managed to pull over at a rest area, so let's check the transmission trouble codes. Clutch application time A, plausibility no signal, and gear 3-4 selection error, no symptom available. Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know what those mean. I'm wondering if maybe
if I shut it off and turn it back on again, if it'll go away. I'm going to erase the codes. Ignition on and engine off. Yes. Yes. Okay. No trouble codes at the moment. Okay, I'll start it back up. The transmission light is off. As of right now, it looks like the transmission is okay, or at least it doesn't have any codes, and it's probably not in limp mode at the moment. Will it come back? I think there's a good chance that it will come back, but we're gonna find out. Okay, so I'm at this rest area now. I'm gonna pull back onto the highway, and hopefully that issue doesn't happen again, because if it does, I'm not really gonna make any progress trying to get across the country with the transmission in limp mode. Just gonna try to go easy and not push it too much. So far, so good. Oh, that felt a little bit weird. So when I was in the traffic, we were mostly stopped. It was really bad traffic, but a few times we did get up to speed, and the codes showed like a 3-4 gear error. I might have been in like 3rd or 4th gear when I felt some sort of I guess it may have felt like a clutch slipping, and it tried to change gear, and the transmission freaked out a little bit. Right now I'm up to 65 miles per hour and no issue, so I think I'm okay. I don't know, maybe the transmission got hot or something sitting in traffic like that. It is a hot day. So far so good. If that happens only every once in a while, I can live with that. I can pull over and reset the codes, and then hopefully it doesn't happen again too soon. But yeah, I can make progress like this. It's now 10 p.m. and I've made it to my hotel in Columbus. Traffic was absolutely horrendous today. I sat in stop and go traffic for probably 2 to 2.5 hours. As for the transmission, it did not go into limp mode again, which is very good news. I was driving it quite carefully so as to not upset it. I think what's happening is when it shifts from 3rd to 4th gear, there's some slipping there. And so I guess I'm gonna have something to fix when I get home. All right, it's day 5, the last day of my journey. I have about 11 hours of driving to get home to New Hampshire, as long as there's no traffic. So far, things are going fairly well. Now, when I do get home, I have a lot of stuff to do to this car. I have every fluid and filter to change on it, do a full service, because that's what I like to do. It'll be interesting to see how much that costs, and I suspect it's gonna be expensive. I also have to deal with the suspension. I wanna take a closer look at that front left inner tie rod end to see if that is actually the source of that steering slop. And then lastly, the transmission. I mean, I want to change the fluid and the filter anyway. I may throw a new shift solenoid in there, but if that doesn't fix it, then the transmission probably needs a rebuild. That's something I've never done before, but I guess you got to start somewhere. There's a first time for everything.
The highlight of my trip was driving through the Green Mountains of Vermont. With the twisty and curvy roads, this car was a joy to drive. Between the nimble handling and the exhaust note, this car really showed what it was built for. Normally, I don't like driving this road, but this car had me grinning from ear to ear.
Well, I made it home successfully, and to be honest, it's been several weeks since then, and I've put several thousand miles on this since then, and I've come up with quite a list of things that need to be fixed, and so I need to set my priorities, and I'm gonna start by making it sound better. This is a piece of art. This is an X-pipe, and it does magical things to the exhaust. Now, if you look under the car, you can see it already has an X-pipe right here. However, the problem is this, which is a muffler. In fact, the car has 3 mufflers, which is at least 1 too many. Now, I'm usually not a big fan of loud exhausts. However, when you have an exotic Italian car, people want to hear the exhaust. It's like you're doing people a favor by gracing them with the beautiful sound that it makes. I was actually at the grocery store the other day walking to my car, and there was this old man walking to his car, and he said to me, "Let's hear it when you start it up." People want to hear the exhaust on this. Well, this should come off nice and easy because there's no rust. I've undone the exhaust hangers for the rear section of the exhaust here, and I have a strap here to catch the exhaust when it falls. So this operation is kind of like a lift and wiggle and pull. Have patience, and then I think it'll come off eventually. Ah, got it. Hey, nothing you can't solve with a little bit of hammer. Hey, excellent. Okay, new X pipe, beautiful polished stainless steel piece of artwork. The X goes towards the back. Now, with the X-Pipe installed, you guys would expect some footage of maybe a cold start and some driving footage to show you guys what the exhaust sounds like, but unfortunately, I have to come clean with you. It is now the next day. You can see I'm wearing different clothing. I installed the X-Pipe yesterday, which you guys saw, and then I went to go play golf after that. So I drove this car, and then on the way home, it developed a rather large coolant leak. The temperature got up to the red line, and I had to stop and let it cool down. I was not too far from my house, far enough that I couldn't keep driving, but not so far that I couldn't go back this morning with the engine cold, and I was able to drive it the rest of the way home. So anyway, what I'm getting at is that you guys might have to wait till the end of the video to see what this exhaust sounds like. If I had to describe what it sounds like in one word, I would probably say raw, which is a good thing. It sounds good. It's louder, but not too loud, in my opinion. It's not so loud that I would bother the neighbors if I leave early in the morning or come home late at night, but it is loud enough so that when I step on it, it sounds good and you can hear it. Okay, so when I got to the car this morning, I added about a gallon of distilled water into here, and I didn't see it leaking out, but it looks like it's empty now, so I think we might have kind of a slow-ish leak. I wasn't able to pinpoint the leak yesterday, but it seemed like it was happening from sort of this side of the engine compartment. Okay, I found it. It's this radiator hose right here has a burst in it back here. You can't really see it, but I certainly can feel it. That's a little bit weird. Do radiator hoses usually just burst like that on their own? Okay, here it is, brand new radiator hose. I had to drive several hours to the nearest Maserati dealer to get this, but here it is. It says made in Italy, which probably means it's just going to break again. Speaking of which, why did this radiator hose break? Probably because the system had too much pressure in it. And why did that happen? Well, did the system overheat before it had a leak? Does the radiator cap here maybe not work properly? That's something I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for to see if there's some other issue that caused that to break. Okay, I'm gonna relocate this expansion tank here so I can see better in there. I can just reach this hose clamp down there with the screwdriver. Yep, got it off. Okay, I have a tool to get stubborn radiator hoses off. This little hook thing sticks in there and you can pull it off. Oh, wow. I think the hose is brittle because I just broke the hose with this, which I've never done before on a radiator hose. Oh my goodness, the hose is just tearing. Yeah, oh my goodness, this radiator hose. So there might not have been any other problem. For some reason, this radiator hose is incredibly weakened. Okay, this is the radiator hose. This is where it busted, and then when I stuck my tool in there to try to pull it off, it ripped it the rest of the way. This seems really brittle, so I'm gonna say that's probably what the problem was. It's a little break right there too, I didn't see that. Some of you guys might be wondering, how much does a radiator hose like this cost for a Maserati? And this was, I believe, about $158. That includes sales tax and rush shipping because they didn't have it in stock, and I wanted to get it as soon as possible. Get in there. There we go. Okay, got the new hose on there. There's one end, and then there's the other end that was a little bit tricky to get. Okay, the coolant that was in here was blue, which is good because as far as I can tell, it uses G48 coolant, which is the same thing that BMWs and Mercedes and Volvos use. So I took a gallon of concentrate here and mixed it with a gallon of distilled water, and now I have 2 gallons of 50-50. Okay, it's used a little over 1.5 gallons of coolant so far. Once I run it and get it up to temperature, it might use some more as it circulates through the system.
Naturally, when you have a four-door executive luxury sedan, you have to compare it with the gold standard of four-door executive luxury sedans, and that would be the Mercedes S-Class. Now, I like both of these cars, but they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and they're actually very different. Technically, I think the Mercedes is a better car in most respects. However, the Maserati really stands out when it comes to being a driver's car. The handling is far superior to that of the S-Class, which is quite boaty, even when it's in sport mode. The exhaust on this sounds second to none, even though the S-Class does actually sound quite good, and you even get some turbo noise with this. The overall driving experience of this is better. For example, one of the things I love about this car is the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. The paddle shifters on this are big, beautifully crafted, and very pleasant to use as a part of the overall driving experience. When it comes to looks, I like the look of both of these cars. I mean, the S-Class, this is the best looking S-Class ever in my opinion. However, this really is special. In fact, if you want something rare, these are not exactly common. However, this is rare. Only 4,000 of the 5th generation Quattroporte S were made for the entire world. Now, I should mention, this car does have its quirks. The check engine light, for example, comes on when you start the car up, and it stays on for a very long amount of time, causing you to worry about, oh no, is it gonna turn off? Another quirk is there are 6 buttons on the back of the steering wheel that you can't see, you can only feel them, and I still don't know what they do to this day. On a more general note, the usability of the Maserati really is lacking in some areas. For example, the heated seat controls on the Mercedes, they probably employ 1,000 people to figure out where the control is going to go and how it's going to work, and they do a great job of it. The Maserati, on the other hand, they have a guy named Giovanni who shows up to work on a Tuesday and says, "The heated seat controls, I think I put it here." And then he goes off to lunch, and you really get the sense that he's thinking more about should he have the red or the white with his lunch than where the control should go and how it should operate. Another quirky thing about this car is the door handles. It has this really nifty electric switch which opens the door very smoothly. However, they knew it would break, so right next to it, there's a mechanical switch to open the door as well. The 5th generation Quattroporte has a reputation for very poor reliability, and I think that's why they're so cheap. However, the reason why this car is a hidden gem is because I don't think it deserves that reputation for unreliability. Now, the early models had the 4.2-liter V8, which did have its reliability issues, but worse than that was the transmission it had, an automated manual. In Maseratis, it was called Duo Select, but the same transmission which was in Ferraris was called the F1 gearbox. The driving experience, from what I've heard, is poor in those transmissions, but even worse than that was the clutch needed to be replaced every 15,000 miles or thereabouts. In a Ferrari, that's probably not a big deal because people drive their Ferraris maybe a couple thousand miles a year, but people drive Maseratis as their daily drivers, so that could be like 1 clutch per year. Now, I'm not going to say this car will have the reliability of a Toyota or a Honda, but might it have the reliability of a Mercedes or a BMW? I think it could. The 4.7-liter V8 engine that it has is quite good, and the transmission is a ZF 6-speed automatic, which is found in lots of BMWs, Fords, Land Rovers, and Jags. In fact, my Range Rover and my Jag both have this transmission. Now, before you run out and buy one of these, keep in mind, parts are very expensive and they're not particularly easy to get. A lot of the time you have to go to the Maserati dealer. You can get them online, but they're very expensive there as well. And the other thing is corrosion is really bad on these. This is a summer car only, and that's certainly my intention. I will not be driving this in the winter or on any salty roads. Okay, I've been talking far too long, and this video is going far too long, so stay tuned for a part 2 where I attempt to fix the transmission on this and the suspension, and I do my every fluid and filter service on it, and we'll see how much all of that costs. Thanks for watching.